Welcome back for another take two with Therese at Altenew, and I've got two beautiful watercolour cards to share using this Paint a Flower set anemone. I always put the M in the wrong spot. And I'm also going to be using the watercolour paper pack, and these are pre-cut sheets of very smooth, very bright watercolour paper, a nice thick cardstock too, so they hold a lot of water, and I do add a bit along the way here. So today's watercolouring is a nice and simple technique, so I've got two different kinds to share with you. This first one here is a washy look, and I'm using the watercolour brush marker refills, which is basically a water-based colour and can be used like any watercolour really. So I just wanted to do like a washy kind of a background, and I have the picture in my head where I want the bouquet of anemones to be in the center. So I'm going to focus my color in the center here, and I'm using my watercolor brush marker here. No, I'm not. I'm using my watercolor brush, picking up water, and I'm either diluting it on the palette or diluting it on the cardstock, and try and get it to mix a little bit, because I did want to create a green, but it wasn't working for me. So what I did instead was come in and add a drop of the lime green here, and that made the green perfectly. When I'm adding color like this over a background, I do like to sort of spread things out, and these are kind of in groups of three. If you look at it, the blue, there's some blue in three different spots. Now there's four lots of green, but basically you see what I mean. It's actually spread around the whole image, and this helps balance out the color. Now, to line up the stamp exactly where I want it, I've got the packaging laying on top of the piece of watercolor background, and then I can just lay the stamp on top, pick it up with the misty lid, and that way I kind of know that my stamp is going. It's hard to see on a clear stamp exactly where it is, especially when it's a fine detail one like this. So I found it was easier that I could look through the packaging and see exactly where the bouquet was going to sit. I wanted this to be a little bit subtle in the background, so I am stamping it out with some grey denim. It's a grey, a medium kind of grey ink, and I did use my Misty to stamp it out twice, so it's handy to have a Misty. I love my Misty. The sentiment is from the Hello and Hugs set. It's the die portion of it, and I've just die cut the word hugs twice in some black cardstock and joined them together with a bit of liquid glue, and then I've added the panel directly to the front of my top fold card and stamped out like a sub-sentiment as well. Now, I did add the 2 layers of the black cardstock because I wanted this to be popped up off the front of the card, so I did cut some tiny little black foam squares to fit behind the word hugs. So probably something I'll want to hand deliver perhaps. And I did actually pop up my sub-sentiment there as well. You could do this with any of your bouquet stamp sets and with any colour combination that you like. So my second card, I'm going to use a very similar colour combo, and this time it's like a no line colouring. Now, I did initially stamp this with a lighter grey ink, but came back in with the silver stone because I couldn't see it with the really light grey, and this will help you see it as well. But this time I actually stamped the image off the edge of the card. I just wanted the whole focus of the bouquet to be down in the corner on the bottom right side of the card only. Now, how I paint with these watercolor brush markers is two different ways. I generally add a little bit of color directly to the cardstock, and then come in with a water brush that has a little bit of water on it, depending on how diluted I want it to be, and then I sort of will wash out the colour. I do work in sections at a time, and if they are going to be a similar colour, I will sometimes add the colour directly next to the image. Like these leaves are quite close to each other, and I didn't wait for them to dry before I painted each leaf. I don't find that I need a lot of water with this technique at all, so it does dry quite quickly and the colour doesn't flow too badly between petals and leaves. Some of the petals I did leave and come back to, and by the time I sort of work around the whole image, they're pretty dry by the time I get back to them anyway. And I did actually pick up some colour and paint some of the other petals and leaves with what was on my brush as well. I don't always wash my brush out either. I will just keep a piece of paper towel beside me and sort of wipe it off on that if I want it a bit more dilute, or if I want it stronger, I'll come back in with my watercolour brush marker and add more colour. But generally speaking, when I'm colouring like this, I'll be doing like a base layer over all of my images. So here all the flowers and all the leaves are going to get like a base layer of colour, and now I come in with my second and kind of a shadow colour. And this time I've picked like a blue green. I'm using the dusk colour here to add to the leaves. Even though it's a blue, I think that adds a real nice sort of depth. And here's the second way that I use these watercolour brush markers to add colour. I actually paint them onto a palette beside me. You could use any sort of non-porous piece of acetate would work, or even a tile or a plate. And then I can just use my water brush to actually pick up the colour and start adding it to the, well, here it's the petals. Speaking of purple, I didn't like the purple that I added here. It was too much. So what I did, because it was too late to take it away, I didn't hate it exactly, I just didn't love it yet. And so what I did was actually add a little bit to all my flowers rather than add a lot, which is what I did start off doing. And then I came back in with the dusk colour again with the dark blue, and it's almost like a dark grey blue, which is just beautiful. And I'm adding shadow over top of all of my images because I waited for it to dry in between, and added sort of shading with that dust colour again over all my flowers. And that, I think, just made such a difference for me. I really liked the way that it looked after I'd done that. Now I did add some splatters here. This is with the sea glass ink spray. A good trick here is when you are on watercolour cardstock with this stuff, it takes an age to dry. So if you haven't got time to let it sit overnight, I would recommend hitting it with a heat tool. And the sentiment today comes from the leaf canopy set, and I kept it very simple. So I will list everything that I've used today at the blog, and the link will be in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be wonderful if you could click on the thumbs up button to let us know that you did. And if you haven't already, it'd be fabulous if you could subscribe to the channel. There's always heaps of inspiration here. And look forward to seeing you back here again real soon. Bye.